So what would our founding fathers have thought about masks, isolation, and quarantine? Today is June 30th. I'm Dr. Adam London, Director of the Kent County Health Department. I'm going to explore that question in just a few moments. But first of all, let's talk about the numbers. Currently, the state of Michigan is reporting 63,497 diagnosed cases of COVID-19. That's a daily average increase over the past week of 201.7 cases per day, and 5,915 deaths, an average of 4 deaths per day over the last week. Here in Kent County, as of today, we have 4,462 diagnosed cases of COVID-19. Over the last week, we've seen an average of 23.3 new cases per day and 129 deaths in total here in Kent County. On average, we're seeing 0.4 deaths per day. So our situation remains very vulnerable. When I last spoke to you, I mentioned that we had seen a couple of weeks where our day-over-day new case numbers were staying relatively flat. Late last week, we saw a slight increase in the average number of new cases being reported. That's come down a little bit over the past 3 days, where we've seen lower numbers once again. I hope that trend continues, but I encourage everyone to remember that we're not through this yet. We remain in a very vulnerable position. We're seeing lots of complaints and images of large crowds on social media, hearing complaints of large graduation parties, other large gatherings, bars, in some cases, restaurants very crowded. We take these things all very seriously. And in particular, when it comes to bars and restaurants, that's something that we're concerned about. Those places have a license to operate. They also have very clear expectations on what they should be doing to limit the size of their crowds, to maintain social distancing, and to remain a low-risk place of operation. And so when we get validated complaints from a law enforcement officer or from one of our own inspectors, we make sure we follow up on that. And we make sure that an establishment that has had a validated problem with crowding is dealt with appropriately. And that we're requiring those establishments to have corrective action plans. We're requiring them to demonstrate that they're taking this seriously and that they're making corrections to prevent those problems from happening again. And if they do violate those corrective action plans, we will then move to close those establishments for a longer period of time, perhaps up to the point in which our region enters phase 5 of the My Safe Start plan. So we do take this very seriously. And we know we have a lot of establishments in our community who are doing a tremendous amount, doing very responsible things to make sure that they can stay open and to make sure that our community doesn't have a resurgence in cases. And so we want to make sure that we protect those establishments as well. It's not fair to anyone if others are abusing the current opportunities that we have to reopen. And so I want to talk a little bit about our founding fathers. And we're entering Independence Day weekend, and that's very important to me and to all of us. 244 years ago, Thomas Jefferson drafted the Declaration of Independence that was approved by the Continental Congress. And in that document, it spells out the very first American rights, and those are the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I believe that very first American right is the right to live. And that's the highest priority of government at all levels, to protect the lives of the people. For this reason, you'll see that the U.S. Constitution, state constitutions, and so many other bits of legislation that have been created since then all spell out and create authorities for government to protect the life and safety of the people. So what would the founding fathers think about masks and about isolation and quarantine? Well, I can't say for sure because they didn't speak directly to those topics. Their quotes don't speak to mask use. The science of their time didn't understand infectious disease like we understand today. But what we do know is that people like Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin were people of science. They were curious about science, and they used science to further life in other ways. We know that George Washington and people like Alexander Hamilton were pragmatic problem solvers. These were people who saw the ravages of infectious diseases like smallpox and yellow fever and so many other things. And they were people who saw the power of what can happen when the American people stand together against overwhelming odds. And that's where we're at now. And so I believe that as people of science, as people who are pragmatic problem solvers, and as people who are patriots, who respected the dignity of their neighbors and the community, that they would be standing alongside us in wearing masks and following the other public health prevention techniques and recommendations that we've been talking about for some time now. They would do this because it's in the best interest of our nation and our neighborhoods. And so I encourage you to be patriotic, wear your mask, avoid crowds, social distance, and support our local businesses. They need our help, but we all need to do this in a smart, responsible way. So I hope you enjoy the Independence Day weekend. I hope you stay positive, stay heroic, stay healthy, and I'll talk to you again next week. Thank you.